Please call the first speaker. Greg Hubert.
Good evening, and thank you, PUAB and our electric director for inviting IMEA to present today. And thank you, IMEA, for being here. As you are also preparing to receive the upcoming CES consultant report, I request your PUAB help with two further areas of IMEA power supply resources and services that are apparently not covered in today's presentation slides. A bit about my background for those of you who don't know me. Since 2018, I've attended IMEA board meetings and shared email reports and IMEA records with NEST, the Naperville Environment and Sustainability Task Force. I'm a co-founder of the Clean Energy Alliance of Naperville, and I previously served as one of the co-leaders of the NEST Energy Committee. Clean Energy Naperville continues to share reports and IMEA records with NEST, and we publish them on our website. My personal efforts are primarily focused on transparency and the risks of our coal-fired power supply in terms of costs to our ratepayers and the impact on our environment. My first request of you, PUAB, tonight is that you ask IMEA to provide us with a public presentation on IMEA's duties, responsibilities, and plans as the direct owner on our behalf of shares of the Prairie State and Trimble County coal plants. Our Naperville share of the expenses and debt service represents over 1/2 of our Naperville $100 million a year in power supply costs from IMEA. And despite our being held responsible for those expenses, these public power resources operate with limited transparency and accountability, as though hidden behind the curtain of a non-public entity in order to obscure that public power transparency and accountability. Second, I request that you ask for a public presentation on IMEA's role as our agent in the PJM wholesale electricity markets. Naperville receives our wholesale power supply from PJM to distribute to our electric customers. As our agent, IMEA pays for that electricity. IMEA also pays PJM for our share of the capacity market that ensures the pool of generators for a reliable power supply. And IMEA also pays PJM for our share of the high-speed transmission that delivers the power to Naperville. And really importantly, IMEA controls those PJM costs for us by hedging and offsetting with IMEA-owned and contracted resources. So thank you again for today's IMEA presentation, and I hope you will also please consider my request for presentations on these additional two areas that I have described for you tonight. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Ted Pollard.
Good evening. Thank you, PUAB members, for your service. Thank you, students and Councilman Wilson. My name is Ted Pollard, co-chair of the Naperville Environment and Sustainability Task Force, NEST for short. Our mission includes educating and advising Naperville residents, council members, and city staff on sustainability. Tonight, I want to clear up a misconception that was recently repeated at a council meeting. Some have suggested that IMEA is and has been responsible for making Naperville's electricity reliable. This is simply not true. So what makes our electricity reliable? First of all, the U.S. grid is already very reliable. The average consumer loses power less than twice and for less than 5 hours a year, meaning it's 99.95% reliable. Only 5% of all outages are due to issues on the grid. The remainder are related to the distribution system. The main reason our power is so reliable is that the citizens of Naperville have paid and continue to pay millions of dollars to bury a large percentage of our power lines underground. And Director Groth's Naperville Electric Utility does a great job keeping the number of outages down and their individual durations short. Naperville's grid provider, PJM, is the one responsible for ensuring a steady and reliable electricity supply into the city's gates. PJM manages power from thousands of sources, making sure all its customers, including Naperville, have the electricity they need. For example, between December 3rd and December 9th last year, more than half of the IMEA's power plants were offline, yet Naperville suffered no outages. Why? Because PJM gets power from thousands of other sources. If we replace IMEA with a different provider, our reliability would remain the same. What actually threatens our power reliability? The greatest cause of power outages are extreme weather events. Extreme events driven by climate change, which is caused by greenhouse gas pollution, especially from burning coal. In fact, the Prairie State Energy Campus is the #1 greenhouse gas polluter in Illinois and the 7th highest in the nation. 2023 set a record for the highest global temperatures until it was broken in 2024. And 2024 set a record for the most severe weather disasters in U.S. history. Unless and until we take action and rapidly transition off of fossil fuels, things will only get worse. If we truly care about reliability of our electricity supply, we should be working to reduce coal use, not locking ourselves into more of it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Joe Haas.
Thank you, PUAB. Good evening. My name is Joe Huss. I'm an S member. I've lived in Naperville for over 25 years. I provided written comments, so those are the pieces of paper that you have in front of you. They provide the links to everything that I'm going to share in my presentation, so that you can check the facts. IMEA has a problem, and they want to make it our problem. They've signed long-term deals with coal companies, and they have minority interests in coal plants. But while coal's market share has plummeted to 1/3 of what it was 25 years ago, coal costs, and the reason that it's dropped is coal costs have stayed the same, while natural gas, solar, and wind, and certainly the council member with wind experience knows the prices have dramatically changed. IMEA's presentation that they'll be giving has a number of big promises, but those promises aren't in the contract that they were proposing. Lower rates are not in the contract. When IMEA says reliable costs, they mean reliably high costs. When they talk about shutting down plants, that's not in the contract. They project to get off in 2050, but I included a link in there that talks about a news article that highlights this isn't the actual plan. And there's more, no clean power is in the contract. As Ted said, the reality is IMEA's plants generate more greenhouse gases than any other plants in the state of Illinois, and they're one of the 10 dirtiest plants in the country. So what is in the contract that they're proposing? A 10-year lock-in with no ability to exit the contract. As folks with procurement backgrounds, you know that you just wouldn't enter a contract like that. There are limits on Naperville's ability to add cheaper, cleaner energy in the contract. They prohibit peak shaving, which would save us money in the contract. IMEA needs to lock us in with no option to leave because they know we're going to want to get out of this contract. The city's NEST team spoke with some of IMEA's competitors who don't have these onerous requirements. Ask your friends what they would think if Naperville were to sign a $2 billion contract without asking for a single competitive bid. At best, it looks like fiscal mismanagement. And we've played this game with IMEA already once, and it didn't end well for ratepayers. IMEA's coal plant cost more than twice what they projected it would cost. It was over $1 billion over budget. The Tribune wrote an article about it called Clean Coal Dreams, a Costly Nightmare, about what our experience was. Why would we trust them to build new assets and take on new bonds that we would have to pay when they bungled this the last time? Fortunately, every city council candidate opposes IMEA's early extension. Councilman Holzhauer called the proposal fake leverage. Councilwoman Taylor said, we're going to bid this out just like any other project. And the mayor said that if they gave him this contract as a business person, he would reject it. Clearly, our city leadership sees through this bad deal. We've made this mistake before. IMEA has made empty promises and ratepayers paid the price. We can't afford to make IMEA's coal problem our problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Next would be Eric Johnson.
Hello, my name is Eric Johnson. My wife and I moved to Naperville just a year and a half ago to start a family. This is the place we want to live for the rest of our lives. We don't have like 20 or 40 years like other people here to brag about. In wholesale energy markets, prices are signals. The grid's physical needs are procured in auctions that power plants and the like bid into. Loads in the power grid, like Naperville, effectively buy energy from those auctions. Like any market following the law of supply and demand, buyers are incentivized to use less power when generation and transmission are scarce, and buy more power or use more power when they are abundant. When I was a ComEd customer, I subscribed to their hourly pricing program. I received a diluted version of those price signals, and I responded to them, including during Winter Storm Elliott. And I saved on my energy supply costs nearly every month. So Naperville values clean energy, and so do I. We want to increase our share of clean energy sources in our energy mix as fast as we responsibly can. But the closer we get to 100% renewables, the harder it gets. We will need to store energy in batteries or sign contracts with solar and storage developments, and we'll prefer that our ratepayers, our electricity customers, shift their loads to solar-producing hours. Getting to 100% clean energy would be a lot easier with participation from our community. And I have 3 examples today of how our electricity tariff not incentivizing the right behavior. First, there are over 5,500 electric vehicles registered in Naperville. That's tens of megawatts of potential EV charging load that we already have. Our flat energy prices, unfortunately, do not incent any of those EV owners to charge their cars at optimal times. EV charging load is flexible, and we should be leveraging that flexibility. Second, there are 1,018 residential rooftop solar arrays in Naperville now, but none of those homeowners are incentivized to shift their electricity usage to the hours when their PV arrays are producing. I'm glad that we have a high adoption of residential rooftop solar, but perhaps you can find a tariff that is more sustainable than net metering, including our pending net metering changes. My last example is commercial solar. There were zero new commercial solar arrays added last year. In fact, not any in the last several years in Naperville, leaving the total at 20. Commercial solar costs less per watt to install than residential solar, yet it seems no more businesses have a good enough reason to install it. It seems obvious that we should be producing power from our community's largest rooftops, especially with so much community opposition to turning farmland into solar arrays. So how can we make commercial solar pencil better in Naperville if we value having rooftop solar? So these 3 examples, EVs, residential, and commercial solar, all highlight things that the community could do to lower our costs and step towards our clean energy goals, but our rates do not send the right signals. Rates are a sensitive topic, and I do not claim to have a perfect model in mind, but I strongly believe that offering a more cost-reflective tariff, a tariff that keeps our distribution infrastructure funded, while still incentivizing helpful behavior, is a huge step in the right direction. And last but definitely not least, Naperville needs a more accurate price signal. In IMEA's contract extension, we are forbidden from shaving our monthly demand charge with batteries. The IMEA did not have this policy to be evil, I don't think. They added it, I think, because their demand charge does not truly reflect the costs that we incur to them. So both the city of Naperville and all its electricity customers should be empowered and encouraged to do what's good for the grid and good for their electricity bills by responding to price signals. Thank you.